Many of the senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. I would know. I am one of them. An unprecedented anonymous op-ed from a senior Trump administration official published by the New York Times described an internal, quiet resistance working to undermine President Trump. The bombshell rattled Washington to its core. Sparks are flying as both parties debate whether the actions described amount to patriotism or treason.
In my world, when the New York Times speak, most of us don't listen. Nothing against the paper, but it's sort of seen as the voice of the left.
This is unbelievable. This is a genuine constitutional crisis.
Are we in a constitutional crisis? We have the facts. First, let's recap on one of the most remarkable weeks in Washington. It started with veteran journalist Bob Woodward and his upcoming expose, Fear, describing a chaotic White House on the verge of a nervous breakdown. In a stunning account, the book describes Trump's closest aides swiping documents from his desk or hiding paperwork so he wouldn't sign them. The White House was caught off guard, despite Woodward's attempts to interview Trump for the book, recounted in an extraordinary recorded phone call with Trump.
Sorry we missed the opportunity to talk for the book.
Well, I just spoke with Kellyanne, and she asked me if I got a call. I never got a call. I never got a message. Who did you ask about speaking to me?
Well, about 6 people.
As the White House sought to discredit the book and contain the damage, the New York Times op-ed dropped. The anonymous author describes Trump as unprincipled and amoral, saying that meetings with Trump often veer off topic and that his impulsiveness results in ill-informed decisions.
I've covered 6 White Houses. I've never seen anything like this. We did have some Republicans raise questions about President Clinton's fitness for office when he was engaged in the Monica Lewinsky scandal. But in this case, we have senior aides to President Trump raising those questions.
The op-ed seems to support Woodward's claims in describing officials working to block bad decisions by the president. Trump called the essay a disgrace and gutless, and even demanded that the New York Times turn the author over to the government.
We have somebody in what I call the failing New York Times that's talking about he's part of the resistance within the Trump administration. This is what we have to deal with. And, you know, the dishonest media, because you people deal with it as well as I do. But it's really a disgrace.
Later, Trump tweeted to his 54 million followers describing the action of the author, treason?
This is not treason under the Constitution. This is not a treasonous act against the nation. It's a disloyal and cowardly act against the president, so I wouldn't say treason.
Lindsey Graham's right. The anonymous author isn't guilty of treason. And as you might have seen in a previous facts video, the U.S. Constitution says that treason against the U.S. shall consist in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies by giving them aid and comfort. But what about a constitutional crisis?
We're not in a constitutional crisis yet, but in fact there are 2 separate constitutional crises that could be ahead. One of them would involve the president's fitness for office. That would be an issue to be handled by impeachment proceedings or by the 25th Amendment.
A passage in the op-ed describes early whispers within the cabinet of invoking the 25th Amendment. The amendment was created as a legal mechanism for designating a head of state when the president is disabled, dead, or removed from office. And since being adopted into the Constitution, it's never been triggered.
The other constitutional crisis could be raised by the fact that Bob Woodward described an administrative coup d'etat, that is, unelected officials trying to countermand or maneuver around the decisions being made by a duly elected president. There is a sense of a gathering storm in Washington. We had 2 presidents of different parties speaking at John McCain's memorial service in language and criticism that seemed very much directed at the current president. You have the Bob Woodward book coming out, talking about a toxic workplace, an erratic president, and what he calls an administrative coup d'etat. And then you have this anonymous op-ed in the New York Times by someone who is described as a senior administration official. All that contributes to a sense that the issues surrounding President Trump, which have been there from the beginning, may be coming to some kind of head.